Alright, so today I'm going to be walking you through how to complete your 2-point perspective packet. Alright, so on the picture with a pencil and eraser I'm going to draw the horizon line, vanishing points, orthogonal lines, and vertical lines over the 2-point perspective pictures and labeling them. I'm going to be starting with the horizon, which I'm going to draw in purple. I'll color code all these for you. So the horizon's going to go straight through right here. So next I'm going to draw vanishing point and orthogonal lines. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to make my left-hand vanishing point blue, and the orthogonal is going to it blue as well, and then the other one orange. So let's start with the blue one. So I can find the vanishing point by drawing two orthogonal lines and marking where they intersect. And that should also be on the horizon. So in this case, my vanishing point is off the page to the left. And I'll do the same thing using orange this time. So I've got two orthogonal lines, and right where they meet, that's going to be my vanishing point. So there's my vanishing point labeled on my sheet behind my paper. So you're not going to be able to see it, so just you can indicate that it's off the page. Now I'll draw in my vertical lines. I can pick any of these. These corner edges of the building are probably the most obvious examples. Now I'm labeling these. I'm going to label this orth for orthogonal. The vertical lines are labeled vert for vertical. I'm going to add another orthogonal line. I want to have 3 of each type of line. Label the horizon. There's only one horizon. And then just indicate that the vanishing point is over that direction. Add another orthogonal line, just kind of the bottom edge of these windows here. So this image down here is a little trickier. It's not a great example of 2-point perspective because this building doesn't seem to be square at the corner. It doesn't have a 90-degree corner. It looks like it's a more acute angle, so it's not a great example, but we'll do our best on it anyway. So again, I'm using blue for the left vanishing point and left orthogonals, and orange for the right vanishing point and right orthogonals. After I've found those vanishing points, I can connect them to figure out where the horizon is. So sometimes the horizon will be behind some buildings or something like that, so it can be hard to tell where it is. But once I've established my 2 vanishing points, I can connect them to create the horizon. And then I'll fill in my vertical lines with the green. They're not quite vertical. There's a little bit of skew because of the angle the photo's taken at. We're so far down that it makes it so the vertical lines get a little narrower towards the top, or the vertical surfaces get a little narrower towards the top. But that's okay. We'll just label them anyway. Okay, so for drawing boxes in 2-point perspective, we have another abbreviation, which is FROLOBU, which means front, right orthogonals, left orthogonals, back, and then opposing orthogonals. So let's take a look at how this works in practice. So we're going to draw some boxes in perspective. So we're going to start with F, which is for the front edge. So we already have the front edges drawn for us, so we don't need to draw those, but that's what you would do. You draw a vertical line. And now I'm going to do the left orthogonals. Whether you do the right orthogonals or left orthogonals first doesn't matter at all. Just whichever way you want to do it is fine. I don't think I do it consistently, so those steps are interchangeable. But you have to remember to do both of them, and 2 for each, from the top corner and the bottom corner. Now I'm going to draw the back. So for the back, it's really important that I have a vertical line. I want to make sure I have a vertical line lined up with the edge of the paper. And I'll do the back on both sides. So now I've defined the back of both sides of the box. And now I do the opposing orthogonals. So these are orthogonal lines that are going to cross. So I can remember that if my box is above the horizon, I can see the bottom. If it's below, I can see the top. And that's how I can figure out whether my opposing orthogonals need to be on the top or bottom. After I've drawn those in, I can go back over with my dark pencil to define the edges and use an eraser to erase my extra orthogonals. There's still an erasing step on this, even though I didn't include it in the abbreviation, so don't forget about that. So that's where I would erase them. I'm not going to, since they're in blue, I'll leave them to show them for you. So then I'll repeat the same steps. I draw the front edge, and then the left and right orthogonals, then the back edges of the sides, and then the opposing orthogonals. Just repeat that process all the way through. So this box is going to be a little bit weird since the front edge is in line with this left vanishing point. It's going to make the procedures a little bit different. So just like when I have a box overlapping my vanishing point in 1-point perspective, I only see the front. On this one, I'm not going to be able to see the left side because that vanishing point is right above where the box is. So I draw that front edge, and then I only need to draw the right orthogonals here. Then again, I draw the back. And this is going to be similar to my 1-point perspective procedure. I'm going to draw the back edge of the top, but that's going to connect to my right hand vanishing point. Like that. See? No, darken it in and erase my extra orthogonals. So our next box here is going to be overlapping the horizon. The front edge there overlaps the horizon. So what that means is we're not going to be able to see the top or the bottom. We'll only be able to see two sides of the box. So we'll start with that front edge again. We will do the left and right orthogonals to the left and right vanishing points as normal. And then we'll draw the back edges of each side. And then we can skip the opposing orthogonal step because the box is intersecting that horizon, so we won't be able to see the top or the bottom. Alright, so now we're drawing letters in 2-point perspective, which is pretty similar to drawing boxes. Some of these letters get a little curvy, so that's going to make that a little bit trickier, but the more linear ones are very similar to drawing boxes in perspective. So for our first letter here, we're going to be drawing an H, and that's basically like a really boxy form, so it shouldn't be too hard for us. It shouldn't be too different than normal. So the edge that it has is going to be our front edge, and that's going to be the left edge of our H. We're going to put the H inside of a box. So basically I'm starting by drawing a box in perspective, or a rectangle in perspective, to put the H inside of. And then I'm sketching out the H. So I'm kind of eyeballing this, trying to figure out how to do it. So I want to draw the two sides of the H, and the side that's closer to us should be a little bit wider, just because of the way the perspective works. The things that are closer are going to be a little wider. And then I'm going to draw the cross beam. Now for the cross beam of the H, I need to remember that it is in perspective, that surface is moving away from us, so it needs to, instead of having horizontal lines, have orthogonal lines going towards the vanishing point. So there's my box. I basically drew a rectangle and then took some parts of it away to make an H-shaped form or shape. So I darken that in. And then I'm going to add the orthogonal lines coming from the left-hand vanishing point. So I got to get all the corners that are not covered up by the front of the H, just like with one-point perspective. So I check all the corners and I see they're right there. There's a little spot that's not covered up, and then it gets covered. This one's not covered up. This one's not covered up. And this one, you can see a little bit again, and then it gets covered. And then we draw the back edge, so we just sort of follow the lines of the front. If a line is vertical, then we want to have a parallel line on the back. If a line is an orthogonal line, then we want to have an orthogonal line going to the same vanishing point. So they won't really be parallel if they're orthogonal lines. But the vertical lines should all be parallel. So basically the difference between the 2-point and 1-point perspective is in 2-point perspective, instead of having the horizontal lines, we have two sets of orthogonal lines. So we can think about it as one of our sets of, or our horizontal lines turn into a second set of orthogonal lines. Alright, so next we have an in, sort of pretty similar operation. So then our E here is the same deal. So now we're going to do the S. This is where things get a little tricky. What we need to do is kind of sketch out our S shape. So we're going to have to kind of draw this freehand because it's a curved shape. So in order to do that so that it's still in perspective, what we want to do is draw a box for the S to be inside of. And this is a really good technique for drawing things that are curvier, not real boxy, but we still want them to be in perspective and fit into a world where we're using 1 or 2 point perspective. So just kind of draw a box right there. And that's just sort of a guide for how the S should kind of taper and get smaller as it moves away from the viewer. So I just want to block in an S with some thickness. And this is a good example of when to use kind of some searching lines, sketch things out, try to find where you want things to be, and make that plan, and then erase the extras instead of just trying to get everything in the first shot. Alright, so once I have my S drawn, I'm going to continue with the orthogonals. So I drew my box for the S using the right hand vanishing point and orthogonals connected to that. So for the sides of the S, I'm going to use the left hand vanishing point. I draw all the orthogonals from either corners or from curves where the apex of the curve is. And then I'm going to draw the back edge sort of matching the curve of the front. I kind of have to freehand that in. And just darken everything and erase the orthogonals. And then the J is sort of the same operation. Draw a box first, and then draw the letter inside the box. I'm going to make this one going the other way, just to switch things up a little bit. So this line's going to be kind of the spine of the J. I've got the curve down here. I'm going to put the crossbar up at the top. Then after that, just draw in the orthogonals going to the right, draw in the back of the J, darken everything, and erase my extras. Alright, so for the next exercise we're drawing furniture. It says everyday objects, but it all looks like furniture to me. So first we're going to draw a table. We'll start off by drawing a box that the table is in. So this is a good way to think about kind of more complex things. Start with the simplest version of it. Start by sketching out the space it's going to occupy, and then add the details you want and kind of make the changes and fix it. So sketching lightly is really important because this is really about a building process as we draw. So I'm repeating my process. I did the front first, and then the right and left orthogonals. Now I'm drawing the back edges, just the backs of the sides. Then we'll do those opposing orthogonals. So I go from the left hand corner to the right hand corner to the left. Remembering that we're going to be able to see the top of all this stuff because it's below the horizon. So then I'm going to go in and make this into an actual table instead of just a box. So I'm going to draw in the legs. I'm going to draw where the bottom of the surface is. And I'm also going to draw in like the back sides of the legs for the two back legs. So for our next thing here, we're drawing a television on a table. So we've got two edges that look like front edges. This is maybe the front edge of the TV, or the table. The other one's the front edge of the TV. So I'm going to add my right orthogonals and my left orthogonals. And I'm going to draw the backs. So basically I'm just going to draw two boxes sitting on top of each other to start. Thinking about the table as being kind of a long flat box, and the TV as being a sort of long flat box that stood up on its end, doing like a flat screen style TV. Also really want to be thinking about like the proportions of a TV and how I can get that right as I draw this. After I've gotten these two boxes drawn, I'm going to make them a little less box-like, a little more like a table or a TV stand and a television. So I'm just going to add some details to it, darken things, and erase my extra lines. So last we're drawing a chair, which is basically going to be like kind of cube or close to a cube or square box with a little skinny box on top of it. So I'm going to make it go up higher here. Here's the bottom edge. But then I'm not going to go as high with the seat part. I'm going to drop that down a little bit. So here's the back. So we can think of the back of the chair as being like a long, thin box stood up on its edge. And I'll draw the seat, which is going to be more like almost like a cube. And here on the back, I can make a line to sort of show where the seat's going to connect to the back of the chair. That's what that was for. here's the front edge of that seat, or the front edge of the leg. So now I have kind of a chair-shaped box. I'm going to go in and draw the details, make it a little more chair-like, maybe round it a little bit. This is ending up with kind of strange proportions on this chair. It's a good example of why it's really useful, even if you're drawing from your imagination and creating things, to have some sort of reference so you can kind of get the proportions right, especially once you start getting into perspective. It's really easy to make things too long or too short, and really skew the perspective and get some wonky results. But it still looks like a chair, so I want to call this good enough for today. Alright, so now we're finishing a couple of structures. The truck is a little tricky because it's not super linear, but the rest of these are pretty straightforward. So we just need to figure out which lines are missing and what lines they should be. So the first thing we have is the bottom edge of this roof, which is horizontal, but since it's 2-point perspective, it'll be an orthogonal line. So then we have all these edges of the stairs, which are also horizontal, but they will be orthogonal lines because we're drawing in 2-point perspective. So after we've gotten all of our orthogonal lines established, we'll go back in and draw with a pencil. We're going to add our vertical line, and then we'll add the back edge of the staircase here. So the back edge of these ones that go back should be orthogonal lines, and the ones that go up and down should be vertical. So we should have vertical and orthogonal lines. I didn't actually check, I just kind of eyeballed it, but those should be orthogonal lines. Connecting to the left-hand vanishing point. Same deal here with the truck and the fence. We're just going to start by drawing in our orthogonal lines, and then we'll darken in our lines and erase our extra orthogonals. So again, we need to keep in mind that all lines that aren't vertical are going to be orthogonal lines when we're constructing our 2-point perspective. Kind of just eyeball the wheels here, but then the bottoms are going to be orthogonal lines. Alright, so for our fence, let me clean this up real quick. Okay. So for our fence here, we're basically just drawing a box with an open top. So we've got the front edge established already. We're going to draw orthogonal lines going to the left, going to the right, and then we've got those opposing orthogonals. And from left to right. But then we'll also do another one at the bottom. So since we don't have a top on this box, we're going to be able to see into it, so we have to draw the opposing orthogonals that make the bottom. Right? Then we're going to come in and draw in the slats. The slats should get bigger the closer they are to the viewer and smaller when they're farther away. Or they should appear smaller. You should draw them smaller. And that's pretty much it. So that should take care of the packet for you. Except the last page, but you get to do that on your own. So show me what you've learned. Show me what you can do with your 2-point perspective skills, and get some practice for your project. All right. Thank you. Bye.